It's a constitutional crisis. Or not. The media headlines scream, "Constitutional crisis. Trump must concede to assure an orderly transition." But is there really a constitutional crisis? Well, a crisis surely. Nothing disenfranchises voters like widespread vote fraud. There is already a proven pattern of corruption. It is not necessary to prove how many votes were affected in each instance. There is no need for a revote. Keep it simple. In the presidential selection, legislators, not courts, can 1. Declare the legitimate will of the people was violated, and 2. Select electors pledged to Trump. As an American, I am embarrassed. We allowed brazen voter fraud to build to epidemic levels, mounting patterns of procedural and systematic and methodical ballot stuffing, rigging counting machines, statistical evidence of election fraud in many states, and suspicious results in many more. Demand action. We will never know how many crooked votes were salted into the process, because once they're out of the envelope or dumped in the counting machine, they are anonymous. You cannot know how an ineligible or dead voter voted. You cannot know when the numbers of votes exceeds the numbers of registered voters or the number who signed the register. You cannot know which ballots to cancel. You cannot know and prove how many ballots were set aside and replaced with substitutes. You can't even prove that thousands of Biden-only ballots were fraudulent. The crooks count on these logical impossibilities. Get out of the weeds. A few votes here, a few votes there, and see the big picture. Systematic, irreconcilable fraud that invalidated the popular vote. There is a simple solution. It's called Amendment 12 of the Constitution of the United States. Quote, "The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom, at least, shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves." Close quote. The 12th Amendment sets out the procedures for the election of the president and vice president. Electors cast one vote for each office in their respective states, and the candidate having the majority of votes cast for a particular office is elected. If no person has a majority for president, the House of Representatives votes from among the top 3 candidates, with each state delegation casting one vote. In the case of a failure of any vice presidential candidate to gain a majority of electoral votes, the Senate chooses between the top 2 candidates. The procedure for choosing the vice president and president is set out in Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 through 6 of the Constitution. This amendment replaces the 3rd clause of that section, which had called for only a single vote or single set of votes for president and vice president, so that the vice presidency would go to the presidential runner-up. In the unamended Constitution, the choice in the case of a non-majority in the Electoral College fell to the House of Representatives, as it does under the amendment, and the runner-up there would be chosen as vice president. The 12th Amendment, the last one to be proposed by the Founding Fathers, was proposed for ratification in December of 1803 and was ratified in 1804, in time for the presidential election that year. The previous system had yielded, in the election of 1796, Federalist John Adams's election as president, while his bitter rival and sometimes close friend, Republican Thomas Jefferson, was elected vice president. In the election of 1800, a Republican, the precursor of today's Democrats, electors, though they clearly preferred Jefferson, sought to guarantee that Republicans won both offices and cast 73 electoral votes for both Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. This threw the election into the House of Representatives, where it was only resolved in Jefferson's favor on the 36th ballot. The hardening of party lines and concomitant voting by party slates which the framers had not contemplated, and some dissatisfaction with the way in which electors were chosen in the states, led to proposals for change, including a proposal that electors be chosen in separate electoral districts in each state. However, the only change successfully accomplished was that of separating voting for president and vice president. Electors in all but 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, do vote as a bloc, effectively ensuring a 2-party system.
There is a story that upon exiting the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was approached by a group of citizens asking what sort of government the delegates had created. His answer was, "A republic, if you can keep it." The analysis of the founding is that it was first a revolt against the monarchy and then a counter-revolution against democracy. There's no question that the men who met in Philadelphia had direct financial interests in the outcome. They were also motivated by the usual stuff like patriotism, regional loyalty, and petty stupidity. More important is the fact that people who drive history have personal interests. The men who revolted against the king did so because they saw an advantage in it. Once they gained control of the country, they were not about to give it away or arrange things to their disadvantage. After all, the whole point of the revolution was to get a better deal. Political arrangements are not about ideals. They are about power. A Republic, If You Can Keep It, by Patrick C. Cantor Sr., is written from the point of view of the Founding Fathers.
Available now at patsanswers.com/blog. Click on the Store tab. $16.99 plus $5 shipping and handling. Buy it today. Most presidential elections have not generated 12th Amendment controversy. However, the provisions of the amendment have surfaced from time to time, most commonly when a third-party candidate threatens to take a substantial percentage of the vote. In 1824, the failure of either Andrew Jackson or John Quincy Adams to garner a majority of electoral votes threw the election into the House of Representatives, where Adams won the presidency despite having fewer electoral votes than Jackson. In 1876, similar circumstances were resolved differently, when neither Rutherford B. Hayes nor Samuel Tilden received a majority of electoral votes, due to disputed votes in 3 southern states. In that instance, Hayes won the presidency when a congressional commission awarded him all disputed electoral votes, and thus a 1-vote majority. The Electoral College was created for 2 reasons. The first purpose was to create a buffer between population and the selection of a president. The second part of the structure of government that gave extra power to the smaller states. The first reason that the founders created the Electoral College is that the Founding Fathers were afraid of direct election to the presidency. They feared a tyrant could manipulate public opinion and come to power. History has proven this fear to be justified by the creation of the imperial presidency, first under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, later by Lyndon Baines Johnson, Richard Milhous Nixon, and lately by Barack Hussein Obama. A charismatic and/or politically powerful leader, combined with a complacent or complicit media, very easily can become a demagogue. Hamilton and the other founders believed wrongly that the electors would be able to ensure that only a qualified person becomes president. They believed that with the Electoral College, no one would be able to manipulate the citizenry. It would act as a check on an electorate that might be duped. Hamilton and the other founders did not trust the population to make the right choice. Their reasoning failed to take in the rise in power of political parties. One aspect of the electoral system that is not mandated in the Constitution is the fact that the winner takes all the votes in the state. While this tends to negate the power of the electorate, with the evolution of powerful political parties, it concentrates great power in the hands of the leaders of those parties. The method that the states vote for the Electoral College is not mandated by the Constitution, but it is decided by the states. Presidential selection is uniquely prescribed in the U.S. Constitution. Article 2, Paragraph 2, says only legislatures can make rules on how electors to the Electoral College are determined. Not governors, nor judges, nor election officials, nor the media. Quote, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors. Close quote. The Constitution does not even require legislatures to follow the will of the people, as expressed in a plebiscite, popular vote. We are a republic, not a democracy. Legislatures have extremely wide latitude. They could have designated themselves, the governor, or a judge to decide which electors go to the Electoral College. They all choose to let the people pick a state of electors. Some winner take all, some apportioned. Legislators have extremely wide latitude, but nobody else is authorized to make the rules. I repeat, nobody else. In this election, many races, especially the presidential, were decided by a corrupt political machine, not the people. Citizens must have confidence their vote was not polluted by fraud. The number of irregularities has grown remarkably over the decades and exploded in this election. They can no longer be tolerated. Timid legislatures will only grow a backbone if voters force and encourage them. Pennsylvania filed a 5-count suit against their governor, who extended balloting to Friday at 5 p.m., but it was weak, window dressing, focused on timing, details, and poll watcher eligibility, not the central issue. Article 2, Paragraph 2 of the U.S. Constitution. The Supreme Court of the United States has a new justice who claims to adhere to original intent. If she does not recuse, she will not require reams of precedent to apply the clear text of Article 2, Paragraph 2 as a remedy in states that exhibited a pattern of fraud. The legislatures must act now, not wait for auditors, lawsuits, lawyers. You must insist that they do so now, or we will lose our country. I'm Pat Kansor, and this is Pat's Answers Archives.